Recently, I did a video where I was giving you two numbers, $3,000 in 12 months. And I was talking about the average cost to start a business is usually around $3,000, and it takes up to 12 months to get launched. And the whole idea behind the video was to talk about how you could get started now and work your way into the full on launch where you're writing a business plan and you're getting all your licenses and everything in place. But what I really want to get to in this video is the discussion about how you can start a business for next to nothing, meaning very little out of pocket expense to get started. Because a lot of people are afraid to start a business because they know it can become costly. And again, depending on the type of business that you're starting, your expenses can be, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the high end. I know to start a restaurant, it could be easily $300,000 or more just to start a restaurant because of equipment and licensure. And you need to get a license just to have alcohol if you're going to have, if you're going to serve alcoholic beverages. So some businesses are very expensive. If you're going to be a plumber, maybe you need to get a van and all the equipment that goes along with that. And that could be, tens of thousands of dollars at the very least, up to upwards of 100,000 or more. So depending on the type of business you're going to start, obviously this discussion of how much it costs to get started is relevant to the type of business you're going to start. But let's assume that you're going to start a business that requires very little overhead, meaning that you're not going to have to go out and buy a lot of equipment. You're going to maybe start it with the equipment you have. For example, if I were to start a e-commerce site, I'd start with the computer that I have. I have a laptop and I have, a digital camera on my phone. And so I would do everything I can to start that business with the equipment that I already have. And there are some e-commerce sites that are, pretty much done for you in the fact that you don't even have to have inventory and warehouse, meaning you don't have to buy this stuff ahead of time and store it somewhere. When I started my first business in 2000, we had to buy raw material to create the product, and then we had to ship it out. And so we did a lot of, different parts of it. It was very labor intensive, and it was, raw material intensive, and we had to have some sort of inventory. And if you want to start getting into the complexities of business, you need to know how much inventory you had on hand and so forth. So there are ways to start businesses right now where you don't even have to have very much in the way of outlay of money. In fact, there's some businesses where you could start for next to nothing, if not zero at all. And I was talking about in that last video where you could use things like social media to set up, shopping sites and so forth. And there are even some places where they will set up the shopping site for you, and all you need to do is get the link out there and market it. Now, you'll notice that I'm not talking about the costs of marketing any of this, because there are costs involved, and that's for another discussion. But understand that when I'm talking about starting a business, what I'm doing is talking about what it takes to actually have product or have service to take to market so that you can do some sort of marketing, whether it be digital, print, or otherwise. And so you need to keep in mind that my discussion on how much does it cost to get started is really relevant to what does it take for you to say, I'm a business or I'm in business. So for me, I chose years ago, 2005 approximately, that I was going to use my brains and what I know to help people rather than to have something that required inventory and manufacturing and all that, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of overhead. And I wanted to find a way to take some sort of product or service to market that was in great need. And what I found is that a lot of people out there want to start businesses and they're afraid to start a business. And so when I talk about starting a business, what I really want you to do is think about what does it take to take your idea to market. So you could use Facebook. I keep talking about Facebook, but Facebook has Marketplace. It has, you can now set up tools through the Meta side of Facebook, where you could actually set up a, e-commerce site and it'll do everything for you. Now, I just want to say one thing about that. Facebook uses this process where they do the card transactions, and they're going to hold your money for a certain period of time. So please understand, when you use certain platforms, you're stuck with some of the requirements that they have. Now, I, for one, use Wix, Wix.com, as a web development. And Wix has different levels of service, and you could set up a pay cart there, and you can use PayPal, or you can use, I think, Stripe. I use PayPal because I've used it for years and I'm established with them. PayPal will also allow you to create buttons that you can set up your own shopping cart through PayPal. Now, one other thing, you could use Square, SquareUp, which is another processing, and Square also allows you to have a shopping cart. Some service oriented websites will allow you to use your own processing to take money. Now, the reason why I use Wix is because I like the flexibility, and I've been doing this a while, and it is going to cost a couple $100 a year for you to do that. And if you're going to have a website, you're going to have to pay for a domain name, and domain names are where it gets a little tricky, because, you know, it's hard sometimes to find a domain name that's available. And I personally don't like all these other extensions. I'm old school. I love .com, but there are a lot of really cool extensions out there now. You know, not .com, but .info, .coaching, I mean, you fill in the blank. And so you're going to have to go with what's right for you. But again, we're getting into more complexity when you start developing these things. But there are ways to take product to market with no money at all. For example, the Facebook Marketplace. You can post something for sale out there. And a lot of times people will do what I call thrift store flipping, or they'll go to a dollar store and find something and then put it out there and flip it for more. I've seen people go into Walmart and go into the the clearance aisle, because now Walmart has this idea where they have this whole aisle full of the yellow signs that say clearance and their little exploding star logo. And I've seen people go in there and buy something for a reduced amount and then go and flip it somewhere else for, you know, what it normally would cost. I've seen people go into the dollar store and do this. I've seen people go into thrift stores and do it. I've seen people go into Marshalls and different TJ Maxx and stuff and buy stuff and then flip it. You can do this on the marketplace in Facebook. You can also go to eBay and some other places. There are actual businesses out there where people do this on a regular basis. My point is, at some point, you are going to have to spend money. But in starting the business, you don't have to spend a lot of money at all. In fact, the majority of what I do, because I'm a service business and I teach things and I work with people, Zoom is free for the first 45 minutes of a meeting. And I usually don't do more than 30 minutes on a meeting. You can do Facebook Live. That's free. You can have a group set up. That's free. And all that's through Facebook. So I use Facebook. TikTok is free, and you can have different monetized things depending on the number of people you have. And I think you have to have about 1,000 people to be able to go live on TikTok. So keep that in mind. But my point is, when you start a business, you don't have to do it with a lot of money. I'll hear people say, "Oh, I got to write this business plan, and I've got to get all this money so I can launch my business." I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I want to teach people how to sew." It's like, "Okay, do you have a sewing machine?" "Yeah, I got a sewing machine." "Okay, do you have a digital camera?" "Yeah, I got a digital camera." "Do you have a way to film it?" "Yeah, but I got to get all this money to." I'm like, "Oh, why?" Because they don't know. They've been told all this time that you need to go out and spend all of this money to get started. And the truth is, you don't always have to. And again, I give the caveat that this is only relevant to certain businesses. If you're going to start a CPA firm and you have all of the equipment to get started, that's great. But if you need an office, that's a cost. If you need You're going to need some sort of liability insurance. That's going to be a cost. So you have to keep in mind that as you grow your business and you enter into certain levels of business, you're going to have certain things in play. Now, I could tell you right now, you could set up a membership business where you're selling monthly memberships, and your overhead costs, meaning what it's going to cost you to have the lights on and the insurance and so forth, that can always stay the same every month. And then it's your job to maintain what we call your break-even point, meaning you have to have at least that many customers so that all of your expenses are paid. And I've seen businesses like a membership model where it costs the person, let's say $2,500, but they're making $10,000 a month before expenses. So you could see that 10,000 a month less 2,500, you're still making profit every month. And that's great money. When you're making, $8,500 a month, that's really good money. It's over $90,000 a year. So if you're wanting to get started, don't stress out on the costs. Okay. What I want you to focus in on is, what is your idea and what are the ways that you can get it to market really quickly? Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to talk about using a one-page business plan. And I actually have one in one of my trainings on my website. But you can really start quite simple with a one-page business plan and zero to no money at all, usually, to get started. I always talk about starting as a sole proprietorship because that allows you to test your product or service in the marketplace as you're building up to get your licensure and whatever. Now, if you're selling a physical product, you're going to have to get your sales tax certificate and everything for your states. That means that's usually free. They don't usually charge you for that, but you're still going to have to do certain things to get going in that regard. But if you're doing a service, you don't have to do sales tax because sales tax is on product. So if you're doing a service like I do, where I'm teaching people how to start businesses, I don't have to worry about a sales tax certificate. So what I like to teach is, how do you get started with your idea that you have now? What is the quickest way to get it to market so you can test it, figure out who your ideal customer is, and then that way, once you have a model in place, you can take it to market and be not only productive, but profitable. So stop worrying about how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take to get going, because you just need to make the decision to get started now and work your way into it. And if you do it the right way, your overhead's going to be low, your risk is going to be low to none, and you can get everything lined up in the appropriate time. If you're going to have employees, obviously you're going to have to get a federal ID number, which means you're going to be doing taxes, and that's going to be a new layer of cost structure. I get it, all complex, and it's it's cascading of all the things you need to do. But if you get started as a sole proprietorship and you start using some of the processes that are available to you now for free, all the social media usually has some sort of free level to it. And obviously they want to make money. And usually, like, for example, Facebook, they're going to make their money off of advertising. So you have all these different tools that you can use for free to get started. So the only excuse that's left is, you're the only one that gets in the way of getting started. Don't remove that block that it's too expensive. I get it. There may be a business you're wanting to start that is going to be expensive, but you know what? I've seen people start cleaning businesses with no money in their pocket. They had the stuff that was in their house, and they just took a bucket and a mop and, a sponge and a couple of cleaning products that they spent, very little money on. And they went out and they started cleaning houses. You don't have to have everything in place. The stars don't have to line up at night in a perfect order, and the universe doesn't have to sing, in angelic tones for you to be ready to get started. It's going to be messy. It's going to be scary, but it's okay. If you're not scared and it's not a little messy, then you're doing it wrong. honestly, because business is risk. And, you ask people why they ride roller coasters. I'm scared to death of them. I won't ride them. But you know what? There are some people that thrive on that level of fear and risk. I don't like roller coasters. I've ridden them, some of them, and they scare me to death. That's not the level of risk that I'm willing to take, but maybe you are. So maybe your risk threshold's much higher than mine. You say, oh, it's not risk. It's fun fear. Well, okay. Find the fun fear in getting started and get going. Start today. I'm Dr. Foster, and I just want to see you be successful. So it's your turn. What are you waiting on?